Hello and welcome to today's Postgrad webinar session. We're joined today by Heriot-Watt University, and today we're going to be hearing about the MSc in Advanced Sustainability for Brewing and Distilling. Now, it's quite a niche topic and quite an exciting one, actually, not one we've heard at Postgrad before, especially when it comes to webinars. So this should be quite unique content, certainly unique to what we've heard before and what you may have positioned yourselves in before, but hopefully there's plenty of information that you can take forward from this and hopefully apply in September 26 or 27. A reminder, today's session is live, so if you have any questions, please pop it in the Q&A box. There is at the very bottom of your screen a box that says Q&A. Please put it in there and we'll do our very best to answer any questions that you might have during the Q&A once Nathan's finished his presentation. And if you are watching on demand and you wish to have a certificate of attendance today, webinars at postgradsolutions.com is the email address, and we also require you to put your personal details along with the name of the session that you've attended. So my name, Gareth Driscoll, Postgrad Webinars, Heriot-Watt University, MSc Advanced Sustainability for Brewing and Distilling. But for now, without waiting too much longer, Nathan, I'm going to hand over to you. I'll be back for the Q&A, and please, please, please pop your questions in the Q&A box. Over to you, Nathan.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction. And folks, thanks very much for coming along to the webinar as well. I'll start by apologizing because this webinar was obviously scheduled for earlier in May, and unfortunately I was ill, so we've had to reschedule it. But thanks very much for coming along, and obviously if you're watching it on demand as well, thanks for going through it. So my name's Nathan. I'm an assistant professor in sustainability at Heriot-Watt University, and I often say I'm very fortunate because I work for the International Centre for Brewing and Distilling. So I've been working in sustainability and certainly in that space for about the last 16 or 17 years. And in 2024, I joined Heriot-Watt specifically to develop this program and to lead it because it's very much the combination of everything I enjoy. Sustainability has been everything in my career, and being Scottish, inherently, I like to drink quite a lot as well. So this brings together a lot of my passions, which I enjoy. So we're going to look at, I guess, a little bit on the sustainability perspective of brewing and distilling, but really looking at what the course is going to do, which is launching in September 2026. So just as a quick overview to my own background, before joining Heriot-Watt in 2024, I actually worked for Queen's University Belfast for about 10 years. And during that time, I developed a career and became an academic focusing on sustainability and net zero engineering. So I was actually the program director for net zero engineering courses at Queen's. I found myself time and time again using case studies for brewing and distilling, though, because as a sector, it undergoes its transition like many others, but it's a fascinating system to look at. You can look at the entire supply chain, the holistic view of it, and you can see the impact that sustainability has. So when the International Centre for Brewing and Distilling were looking for somebody in that space to develop their own course, it seemed like the perfect opportunity. I'm very glad that it's worked out. So for today's webinar, see if we can move forward. There we go. The overview is just a very bit of, I guess, bit of context as to sustainability in brewing and distilling, and then looking a bit more at the program overview. So what the course is designed to do, what the sort of content is going to be like, who the course is for, why perhaps you should consider studying at Heriot-Watt, and then a little bit on the program and the course learning outcomes. I won't spend a huge amount of time because that information's on the slide, and I'm sure everyone will get a copy. You'll be able to go through it in the recording, so you can take a bit of time to look at some of the specific outcomes, and then we'll try and get to the Q&A where there's still plenty of time to ask any questions. But as Gareth was saying, if you do have any questions, pop them into the chat, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. So in terms of sustainability in brewing and distilling, now I'm acutely aware that there's probably plenty of people on this call at the moment that have some experience in brewing and distilling, and there's a good chance that you have some experience in sustainability, and then even sustainability in brewing and distilling as well. Anytime I talk about sustainability, or if I talk about net zero or that transition, I often find it easiest or useful to look at these four pillars and sort of categorize them, and it helps us gain a little bit of context. So I often talk about technology, environment, economy, and society. The bullet points I've got under each of those headings, Those are just some of the high level points that we can associate with each of those categories. My point with all of these, however, is that some of these points are opportunities and some of them are risks. And that's very much the nature of what sustainability is. Now, this applies to lots of different sectors, but if we start looking at brewing and distilling specifically, and like I said, if you look at that entire supply chain from the point where you are growing a crop in a field all the way through to when you have your final product and it is being shipped to whatever its final location is, and then even beyond that, when we look at what consumer habits are and the idea of recycling, there are multiple points along that entire supply chain where we can not only discuss the impact of sustainability, but we can look at how sustainability changes within that supply chain and ultimately what it means for different people at different points as well. I think we have a tendency sometimes to focus on maybe the technology side of things. We look at the actual process of brewing and distilling from a pure science and engineering perspective. And it's good to do that because we know what that energy profile looks like. And we can talk about how do we integrate renewable electricity? How do we look at alternative sustainable fuels for that process? But that's not the only thing that's part of that supply chain. So when I talk about sustainability in any sector, but especially in one like brewing and distilling, I like to extend it as much as possible. And that's really where the course has come from as well. We're very fortunate. We have incredible industry connection and engagement. So the course has been designed off of the back of the needs of industry. We have a industrial advisory board that have spoken to us and told us what the challenges are that they're facing, and we've tried to reflect that in how we've designed the course. Now, in terms of balancing those risks and opportunities, it's not easy, but I will always be an advocate to say that net zero, sustainability, a low carbon society, whatever terminology you want to use, there is a balance between risks and opportunities. It's very easy to say that sustainable practices, net zero objectives, they're costly. They are. They do cost a lot of money, but there are opportunities within that as well. And it's about understanding where they are. Now, one of the things I talk about is not necessarily the objectives, and I'm aware that maybe most people on this call are familiar with what their net zero objectives might be in their current sector or what they are in brewing and distilling. And we see that we want to be net zero by 2040 or 2045, depending on which body that you're speaking to. Those targets will always be ambitious. That by their nature, they have to be, and that's fine. But what I'm often interested in is a transition. How do you go from the point where we are right now to the point that we want to be? Because that transition requires different stages. And I think we often assume that that transition is going to be very smooth, very orderly, and unfortunately, it's not. It's probably going to be quite disorderly. It's going to have different paces at times as well, and the way that we maintain that pace or the way that we adapt to that pace can have a huge impact on how we transition. So if you are in the brewing and distilling sector, or if you're in a specific site, how you adapt to that change and how you try and keep up with that pace, that can be part of the challenge. But if you can understand that, then you can also see where your challenges are and where your opportunities lie as well. So the graphs on the bottom essentially simplify that as much as possible. So what the course is really trying to do is put people in a position where they understand that a little bit more in order to be applying the knowledge and asking questions. And one of the best ways to do that is you look at your current footprint, you look at what you're doing, and then you look at where you want to be. Now, when you look at what you're currently doing, you then map your trajectory and say, well, if we continue the way we're going, this is what's going to happen. And generally, this is timeline, and you could say this is CO2 emissions. This is sustainability on the y-axis, and that's not necessarily going to get right-hand side. We see that there's a bend in that curve because this represents the point that we want to be. That might be lower emissions. It might be as here, this sort of bend. We need to know at what point can we introduce leverage point where we can introduce in order to change the trajectory that we might be on. Now, it might also be understanding what other leverage points are there. What is there in terms of policy? What is in there in terms of government and financial aid in support as well in order to change that trajectory? But my point is that we need to be able to understand that transition in order to look at where can we have the maximum impact to have that leverage point. And that really brings us to the idea of a wicked problem. Now, I don't think it's a bad thing to admit that this is a wicked problem. Anyone who says it's not, I'd maybe argue that they might be lying. The nature of a wicked problem is we know where we want to be. The problem part of it is we just don't really know how to get there. And I've worked with lots of different sectors and industries around sustainability and net zero. And brewing and distilling is unique in a way, not just in terms of its process, but there is an honesty with brewing and distilling in respect of this. They're very open about that. There's a fear around sustainability. There's a fear around the transition, and a lot of that boils down to the what are our options and when do we do them? They're not against sustainability. I haven't met any real resistance. Nobody thinks that they can ride this process out. They are very open to making changes. They just want to know what sort of changes should they be making and when they should do it. And there's no silver bullet. There never really has been a silver bullet for what we talk about here. So it's going to be very different for every brewery and every distillery and every sort of department within that. So the best way we can address that is by looking at the knowledge gap and the skills gap and identifying where they are to try and support that transition as much as possible. And that's really where the course comes in. So the course as a sort of quote is looking to support the brewing and distilling sector's transition towards net zero ambitions by bridging skills gaps and equipping professionals with the expertise to drive sustainable innovation and practice across the sector. And that's something that we're trying to do based off of the conversations that we've had with industry and building on the experience that we have within the International Centre for Brewing and Distilling. It's not a course just to be a course, and it's also not a course to necessarily train brewers and distillers. ICBD has a fantastic reputation and it has a portfolio of courses already. This new course is to be complementary to that. We see where those challenges are, we see where those barriers are as well, and that's very much what we're targeting. So, in terms of a program overview, I'll go through some of the details and sort of the high level view of the course in terms of what we're hoping graduates are going to be able to get out of it, the position that they're going to be in if they do the course, what I guess, the job market looks like, that landscape certainly, and some of the skills that are going to be associated with it as well. So again, if I was to break this down into very high level targets and I guess objectives that we want graduates to take away from the course, we can see them here as well. So to discuss the various approaches to sustainability and evaluate how these can be deployed in different scenarios. Sustainability is a really common term, but there's a lot of misinformation and there's often a lot of disinformation about it as well. It's very important that we can understand what sustainability means, the impact of it, and be able to define it and to be critical of it as well. There are numerous challenges in sustainability, and we have to delve into the principles and the fundamental understanding of what sustainability is, because that allows us to then look at, well, how do we apply that? How do we deploy that knowledge in relation to brewing and distilling? So that's where we start. And I never assume that anyone is an expert in sustainability beforehand. I'm always interested in what people's experiences are because that helps tailor the conversation. But that's kind of where we start. Then what we also do is we critically analyze published literature to produce technical and economic evaluations of low carbon and sustainable technologies and methodologies. There are a range of options out there in terms of what brewing and distilling can do. Some of them will work perfectly in certain situations and others won't. What we need to be able to do is evaluate them. We need to look at the feasibility, we need to look at the techno-economic feasibilities, and then, like I said, going back to those four pillars of looking at the societal impact of that as well. We'll model systems and we'll discuss the complexity of implementing advanced sustainability. Sometimes just because we are able to identify the challenge with sustainability and provide a solution doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy to implement. We're talking about processes that have been well established and are very mature for a very long time, and they're good at what they do. I think that's something that we often forget that when we look at, for instance, the oil and gas industry and how that can support the brewing and distilling sector, it's worked for a very, very long time. So we're looking to transition away from that and maintain that efficiency. There'll be things that we keep as tradition, and as we integrate new technologies, the interface between the two has to be as seamless as possible because at the end of the day, there's a product. There's a product that has a price tag on it as well. And we don't want to negatively impact that. We want to maintain flavor profiles and we want to maintain the economic advantages that we might have with that while bringing in sustainable practices. And the last one, and I'd say they're all important, but this is the one that I've often focused on for a number of years now, is that we have to effectively communicate what those options are. It's often very easy for us to, if we're very similar-minded, perhaps even on this call, to agree with what the best way forward is or to agree on the importance of sustainability. But as we go beyond that, maybe as we go back into the sector, we will meet resistance as we go and speak to the public or to the government as well. We'll meet different levels of resistance. Our ability to communicate what we're doing is vital, especially if it goes back to that societal piece as well. This is things that are going to have a big impact on people. It's going to change perhaps some of their behaviors or how people have been conducting their businesses or how they've been running their breweries and their distilleries. That's a big change to have to take on board. Our ability to communicate that information and to actively support the development of advanced sustainability, that's really important so that people understand what we're trying to do, the impact of it, and so that we don't shy away from the challenges of it as well. I don't think that we need to always have rose-tinted glasses on. I think we can be very open about the challenges. That helps us understand complexity and it helps us push forward to what we're trying to do as well. In terms of the job market, I mean, this is obviously a question that I get quite a lot, and it will vary, and it's going to develop quite a lot in the next couple of years as well, because we're going to see sustainable practices coming through more and more, and we're going to see the job market adapt to that. So there is always going to be positions where we see in sort of production and research where we're looking at maybe the integration of new technologies, or we're looking at the development of new technologies or frameworks or methodologies that can support sustainable practices. And that might be where we're looking at crop growth and resource management, for instance, or it might be the pure chemical engineering of how do you integrate biomethane? How do you integrate hydrogen? How do you switch to electrification, for instance? There's obviously always going to be demand for consultancy because there's always going to be a skills gap, and breweries and distilleries are going to have to transition. They are going to have to make changes, and they're going to be asking those questions. So there's always going to be a demand for people that understand that and can provide that insight. Policy development is obviously a very big one. It's challenging, as is anything when you're working with a government, of course. There does need to be more evidence-informed and data-led policy decisions. There needs to be more support from government for every sector. I don't think that's something that people haven't heard before as well, but the engagement with policymakers, that is going to be crucial. So whether people are looking to go into that sector themselves or just be in a position where they can engage so that they can actively help with the development of policies that are going to support the sector. Safety will always be a big one. We are bringing in new technologies, and with new technologies, there is always a risk. And if it's technologies people haven't used before, there are going to be safety concerns. It's important that we can address those safety concerns. So there'll always be jobs where we're looking at if you're integrating very new things like hydrogen, for instance, that comes with different protocols that breweries and distilleries might not be familiar with. So there's always going to be a job market in that respect. And the other one that I've seen grow fairly rapidly is sustainability focused roles and even career progression development as well. There are an increasing number of distilleries that have heads of sustainability or a director of sustainability or something similar. I've also met countless people in different distilleries and breweries in the last couple of years that have said that they're taking on sustainability roles within their sort of day to day. So they're not the head of sustainability, but they found that sustainability has become part of their normal activities, and they're interested in learning more. Sometimes it's just to have the confidence behind what they're doing. Other times it's because they do want to look at career progression in that space, and that is perfectly fine, and it makes a lot of sense to do so as well. So across all of those sectors, there will be job development. That will vary as we go on, but I think for the time being, it's quite reflective of where the opportunities lie. In terms of the other things that we're trying to do with the course, I guess really is develop a professional portfolio in sustainability for brewing and distilling, and this just captures a lot of what I've been talking about before. I'd love to be able to say that once you've done the masters that you'll know absolutely everything about sustainability and you will have every single solution you need to fix every single problem, but that is unfortunately not the case. What I can do though is produce graduates that are in a position to apply that knowledge. They will have a confidence in understanding what sustainability is and how it is deployed within brewing and distilling, and that's what I want people to be taken away. They take that back to industry and they can implement it. The application of knowledge is really the focus. It means as well they're in the right position to ask the right questions. So whether we go back to that idea of looking at where you are right now, evaluating your current procedures, your footprint, and what your trajectory is, and then designing a decarbonization strategy that fits that specific pathway. There are skills and there's knowledge that's needed, and that's what the course is really trying to target to build that portfolio so that students are in a position to do that, and then collectively that supports the sector's transition to net zero as well. In terms of who the course is designed for, it's fairly broad, to be honest with you. It's categorized as three here, but I'd say that I'd be happy to always have as much flexibility with the students that are coming in. And if you're unsure, you can obviously get in touch with myself or any of the team at Heriot-Watt. I'd say that these are three areas that I think probably stand out. So professionals within the sector that are looking at CPD opportunities and reskilling. So like I said, sustainability is making its way into the sector and having impact already. And sometimes that is happening at a pace that our workforce is not ready to deal with. People want to reskill and they want to have a confidence and understand what sustainability is, and we recognize that, and the course is tailored around it course, it's well suited to students from almost any STEM background. Brewing and distilling is an absolutely beautiful blend of so many different types of sciences and engineering. We see chemistry and biology and chemical engineering coupled together, and there's a real synergy behind it as well. So, anyone who is from a STEM background and you're looking to transition into the sector, this course is well suited to you as well. Even if you're not coming from a brewing and distilling background, but you think this is a sector you'd like to get involved with, which I'd highly recommend, of course, the course is for you as well. And undergraduates are targeting a career within the sector. Now, you could be coming from a brewing and distilling background already. You could even be a student from Heriot-Watt that's done our brewing and distilling undergraduate, and you want to go into the sector, develop your career, but you want to do it from that sustainability perspective. Again, this course is perfectly designed for those. So, if you want to ask that question, if you're in a position where you're not too sure if your background is suitable, I'm more than happy because for the past, I'd say almost 7, 8 years, I've done that time and time again with potential applicants who come from really varied backgrounds. If it's a simple case of asking that question, I'm always happy to have that conversation and discussion with people. In terms of the skills, so I often use a skills wheel to develop to show what some of the course does. And you can see that here. So fundamental understanding, tools for design, communicating opportunities, engineering systems integration, driving sustainability and innovation. And a lot of these skills are embedded across all of the courses that we teach within the masters as well. It's not necessarily that we just do fundamental understanding in one course. I've tried to design the program and the courses so that they are cohesive and there's an overlap between them as well. Brewing and distilling is a sort of sequential process. We have a beginning, we have a middle, and we have an end. It's important that we kind of reflect that in how we teach it as well, so that you can take the knowledge from the initial courses and be applying it into the to the later courses as well, and ultimately into how you might conduct your research dissertation as well terms of why study at Heriot-Watt, to be honest with you, the International Centre for Brewing and Distilling is something that I imagine a lot of people are familiar with. It has a fantastic reputation, and I'd be lying if I said it wasn't one of the reasons that I wanted to join Heriot-Watt in the first place as well. It's developed that reputation over a number of decades now. It's recognized globally, and they've done some fantastic work in training lots of different graduates. It's very rare that I go to an event now where I don't meet somebody who said they're a graduate of ICBD or they're engaging with some of the staff here, or they're conducting research as well. And it provides an absolutely fantastic platform for that as well. And you're surrounded by very like-minded people. The brewing and distilling is a passion for lots of us, and it's nice to see that. So what we're designing in this new course is to be complementary to that as well. Of course, if you'd like any more details, you can have a look at the website. You can get in touch with myself, and if there's anyone specifically with an ICBD that you'd like to speak to, you'll find our details on the website as well. Moving into the sort of the program level outcomes and the course level outcomes, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on these because the text is there, and if you get a copy of the slides, you'll be able to go through it yourself as well. But what I will say is that our program level outcomes, or our program learning outcomes, I should say, these are the holistic learning outcomes. All the courses combined, so the entire program, this is what we are looking to deliver. And those are then broken down into the individual courses as well. So you can see here we have demonstrating a core understanding of key criteria and fundamental concepts associated with sustainability and their relevance to the brewing and distilling sector. Now, that particular program level outcome, that is almost from day one right through to the end of it as well. And for some of our level outcomes, that's what you'll see time and time again. Some of them can be a little bit more specific as I go through some of the slides as well. So we can see looking at utilizing models, tools, and sustainability frameworks to conduct holistic system level analysis of alcoholic beverage production. Things like that tap into the idea of systems thinking, and it also taps into the idea of tools like life cycle analysis and techno-economic analysis. And as much as those are big topics and it's very difficult to teach them in their entirety, what we can do is provide that introduction and how you can utilize those skills and how you can then take that knowledge and apply it to maybe a research dissertation while you're on the program, or while you can take it back to the sector that you might be working in, or the brewery or the distillery, and look at how you'd apply that knowledge as well. So in total, we have 9 program level learning outcomes, and they cover everything that we'll do in the courses and the program as a whole. If we break them down into slightly more specific sections, I can give you an overview of what the structure of the courses are. So the way that the master's program runs, you will do 4 core mandatory courses. You then have the opportunity to do 4 elective courses, so that you can tailor the experience to something that's more relevant to you as well. So the 4 core courses that you'll do, you can see here we have the principles of sustainability criteria, beverage industry sustainability, beverage process sustainability, and raw material sustainability for brewing and distilling. Now, the way that the course is structured, we see there's got 3 semesters. Semester 1 is where we'll do principles of sustainability criteria, and we'll also do beverage process sustainability. Now, during this semester, these 2 courses are mandatory, but you can see here you have 2 optional courses that you can do, and I've given you some examples. So we have process intensification, future foods, and economics of renewable energy. Now, the optional courses here are so that you can tailor that to a certain extent. For instance, if you come from a renewable energy background, you might not be interested in the economics of renewable energy. However, you might be interested in future foods, for instance. It's also so that you can tailor it towards whatever your own career development might be, or the route that you might want to take as well. So these are all existing courses that are offered within Heriot-Watt, so they're well established, and it's complementary to what we're teaching. Likewise, in semester 2, we'll do raw materials, sustainability for brewing and distilling, and beverage industry sustainability. You'll also then do 1 course on research professionalism. So that's where you look at developing a research plan to do your dissertation, which means you then do 1 optional course as well. So that can be things like carbon solutions or management in the food and beverage industries. So that gives you the ability to tailor this to something that makes sense for you as an individual. The 4 core courses, those are the ones that provide that perfect platform and that understanding. Beyond that, you can then adapt it to what makes sense and what you feel is the most relevant for your own situation. Finally, semester 3 is the research project and the dissertation. This is where you have the opportunity to delve into a research project that hopefully you're interested in, and something that will have impact within the sector. How I typically would run research projects and dissertations is that we try and have as much flexibility as possible. Rather than providing a very prescribed set list of research projects, we look at areas of interest that relate to all of the staff that provide projects for that particular course. And we encourage students to engage with them to develop a research proposal or a research question that you want to do. Now, more often than not, most people want that to be industry facing and real world facing, which is perfectly understandable. We want to have impact. And in the past, when I've designed courses, that is exactly what's happened. We've occasionally have the opportunities where we have industry partners on board, or we can have supervisors from industry that engage with the projects. It might be providing a data sample from an existing operation, or it might be somebody from industry coming in and saying, this is our problem. This is the problem that we're facing at the moment. What are those potential solutions? If you're in the sector at the moment, you might have an idea of what you want to focus on. And that's absolutely fine. And I'd encourage anyone to bring that to the table and have that discussion to see if we can support and facilitate that sort of project as well. So that gives you an overview of the course in terms of the 3 semesters, the courses that you do, and some of the examples for the optional courses as well. The final few slides here are just looking at the specifics of each of those individual core courses. So it comes along with the learning outcomes for each of them. I won't go through them in a huge amount of detail. You can read through them, and if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. We will start with principles of sustainability criteria, and that's so that we can begin with what we feel is the most important in terms of understanding the fundamentals of sustainability, looking at the risks, looking at the opportunities, and looking at how can we define sustainability so that we have an understanding of it. And then at that point, we can start transitioning towards what does that mean for brewing and distilling? We understand sustainability now, we understand everything that's associated with it, and we can be critical of it. How do we apply that to brewing and distilling? Beverage process sustainability looks more specifically at the individual processes along that entire supply chain, and we look at where there is sustainability challenges, where there are risks, and where there's opportunities to implement new advancements. So we look at the technology behind it, we look at the legislation that might be associated with it as well, and we look at what the impact might be if we were to replace something, if we were to introduce a new technology and integrate it. Beverage industry sustainability is where we take a slightly more holistic view of the entire process and we look at, well, how can we achieve sustainability with a view towards decarbonization? And this course takes the form of a design project where we would typically set a design brief and you have the opportunity to work in groups over the entire semester and utilize tools similar to life cycle analysis and carbon footprinting. And you have an opportunity to design a solution to a problem. We typically provide some baseline information, but beyond that, it's entirely what you think is the right thing to do. And it's an opportunity for you to pull together your knowledge. This is a course that comes into semester 2, so you can look at pulling in some of the understanding that you're doing, the principles of sustainability, for instance. You can then bring in some of the more technical side of things that you might have done in process sustainability. At the same time, you will have done your optional courses. You'll be doing a course in the feedstocks, for instance, that are going into brewing and distilling. You'll understand the sustainability challenges and impact of that as well. So it's a chance to really compound all that knowledge and then apply it to a very specific challenge. And raw materials sustainability for brewing and distilling is looking at that initial stage of that supply chain, looking at what our raw materials are, where we see that sector going, what the challenges are, and trying to predict in terms of what's coming in the future, to look at the associated challenge with raw materials and their supply chains, and the implications that's going to have on the downstream processes. What we're looking at there is essentially the ingredients that make our final product, and altering them is going to have an impact. Understanding that impact and what it might do in terms of an environmental impact, an economic impact, a technical, or again, a societal, is really important. So, folks, that brings me to the end of I guess, of the talk part of this webinar. So I'm going to finish here by just summarizing that The course is launching in September 2026. It's open for applications at the moment. It is offered as a full-time mode of delivery, as a part-time mode of delivery. It can be online, it can be in person, and there are the full MSc and there's the postgraduate diploma available as well. So there is a lot of flexibility in how this course is taught and delivered, and that's something that I've done for the best part of the last 8 years of all the courses I've developed. That this is not just designed for somebody that's maybe sitting in the classroom. Lots of people need flexibility, and we've tried to offer that as much as possible. You can scan the QR code to find out a little bit more about the course, and you're more than welcome to get in touch with me even after this webinar if you have any questions. I'm most happy to have a conversation and a discussion, especially around sustainability and brewing and distilling. It's a very easy thing for me to talk about, I find. So, I'm gonna wrap up there, and if there are questions, I'm more than happy to spend a bit of time answering them now.
Nathan, thank you for your time. Quite an intriguing session, actually. I've never seen a session or an informative session on that kind of topic. So it's intriguing to see all the work that goes on behind the scenes, which is fantastic. There have been quite a few questions, and there's some really in detail questions. So I'm going to start with the more academic questions.
Okay.
That's okay. Um, could you clarify whether the program is mainly focused on European sustainability regulation and compliance, or whether it takes a broader international perspective, including the UK and global frameworks?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. As much as possible, we'll probably try and take a global view. Obviously, based on Heriot-Watt being in Scotland and ICBD engaging with the Scottish and the UK sector so widely, it's easy for us to do that, if I'm being honest. But at the same time, we know what that market looks like globally, and we'll try and cover as much as possible. And certainly, I think we'll try and look at legislation and regulations and standardization in different regions, especially if there's any differences between it as well, because that can kind of help us understand um, why there might be differences and try and inform everyone so that they understand how it can vary from region to region. But it's certainly not designed just to be UK or European specific. We will include some global relevance as well.
Interesting. Okay. Given that sustainability is becoming increasingly integrated across industries, to what extent are sustainability topics also covered in other programs, such as brewing and distilling, but within the disciplines I think they're getting at there?
As in, how much is sustainability being taught in some of our other courses?
Yeah, so within, so is it only really this that you can really focus on that sustainability aspect?
No, I don't think so. So we obviously within ICBD, I should say. So we have a master's in brewing and distilling, and you can do that as brewing and distilling with entrepreneurship as well. And we have an undergraduate program in brewing and distilling. Those courses, historically and traditionally, and still to this case, are to train people to be brewers and distillers. And naturally, over the last maybe 10 years, we've seen sustainability content come into that sort of core curriculum as well, and that's been a fantastic thing. But at their core, they are still trained, or they are still training brewers and distillers. So there was an obvious need to have a dedicated course that addresses the sustainability, and that's why this course was developed, and ultimately why I was brought in as somebody who isn't necessarily a brewer and a distiller, but somebody who comes from a sustainability background to provide that perspective. So there absolutely is sustainability content because I'm teaching some of that at the moment as well on the other courses, but this is really to address that growing need and that challenge. And I think to address the fact that sustainability is this very well-known word, but it is huge and it covers up an awful lot of content and information, and that is terrifying at times, even for somebody who's worked in the sector for 17 years. So it's really unpackaging a lot of that so that people are better informed as opposed to maybe just having smaller content delivery on sustainability.
Excellent. I want to go back to the very start, and you mentioned that how you got into this. It's because, and not all Scottish people, though those that are watching, not all Scottish people love their alcohol. There are some that don't, but you did mention, of course, that obviously it was a passion of yours, and you got into it that way. What typically would you expect a student's experience to be before doing their masters? Obviously, sciencey related programs, but Are there other opportunities that they can go down before doing their masters to help them get onto this?
I think there's usually a few, I'll be honest, I'm always happy to do it case by case. So if somebody's
Mhm.
coming from a STEM background, they'll have a fundamental knowledge of the typical processes that are involved with brewing and distilling. That's fantastic. But sustainability is very diverse in terms of the impact it can have in business, in economics, even in psychology, as well. And if people have a passion for brewing and distilling and it's a sector that they want to go into, but they may be thinking, well, I don't want to be a brewer or a distiller, but I want to support that sustainability side of things. That's where there's a pathway, and that's where there's a pathway with this course as well. I mean, my own a long, long time ago, my original degree was in genetics and molecular biology, and then I did a PhD in chemical engineering. As far as I'm concerned, brewing and distilling is the perfect combination
Yeah.
of those things, and sustainability is overarching in everything that I do. But I think, and based on, who I've met so far in Heriot-Watt and in this sector, there's always a passion. Like there's a motivation for wanting to do this, and that's fantastic. And I assure you that that's not always the case with degrees. So I think if there's an interest there, that's where we start. And if you're looking at supporting sustainability strategies and how sectors can decarbonize, that's the conversation that we need to have. And then we can look at is there the relevant sort of prior experience because I'd never want to set anyone up to fail. I don't want anyone to do this
Yeah.
course if it's something that they're not going to enjoy and not going to get the most out of. So that's what we essentially try and factor in.
Well, questions coming is how hands-on is the program, or is it more classroom based? You touched upon it at the end, actually. You mentioned that you've deliberately designed the program so it's not mundane and you're just in the classroom. But how important is that to the education? Actually, you're not just sat at a desk looking at somebody educate you, you're actually hands-on and you're actually getting involved with it.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So, there's no labs as such because most of those labs are associated with a master's in brewing and distilling. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily expecting everyone just to be turning up to lectures and have to listen to me ramble on for however many hours. Like at this level, at postgraduate level, it is often more of a discussion and a conversation as well. There will be lectures. Of course, there's going to be
Yes.
lectures. There's going to be content that we're going to teach. It is designed to be as engaging and as back and forth as possible. And that typically lays that foundation for when we do more workshops and seminars as well. And that is where we get a little bit more engagement and we can learn a little bit more about the students as well. But I think that's offset with we have a lot of guest lecture series. So ICBD have a fantastic after hours session where we have um, guest lecturers coming in from different aspects of the brewing and distilling sector already. The design project obviously gives you an opportunity to have real ownership over something, and you're just in those instances you're getting support from academics, but it's you're asking those questions sort of thing. It's not necessarily lecturers lecturing you on something. Usually, no sessions. I say, "How are you getting on?" And then we find out, and then I can provide some input that's hopefully useful. And then a lot of that then comes down to the research dissertation. That's the opportunity where if you do want to be hands-on, that's where you can do a lab-based or a physical project. I know that that's not for everyone, so there will be other projects where it might be modeling based. It might be looking at the techno-economic feasibilities. So there's a lot of flexibility within those projects, but I know from my own experience, there's only so long I can sit and listen to things. So I don't expect students to be sitting down for,
Yeah.
an hour, 2 hours and listening to me drone on because even I struggle with that. So there's a lot of engagement, there's a lot of sort of interaction and quite a lot of bit of hands-on as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Nathan. At this stage, if I can invite Fraser Scott on. Fraser, you're from the admissions team. Obviously, we've had many conversations in the past about various different things at Heriot-Watt University and what's expected. Fraser, are you there? Are you able to just pop your camera on and just answer a couple of questions if that's okay? Sorry, I know I've kind of thrown you under the bus a little bit.
No,
But
no,
there
you're
have been
enjoying the
questions
answer.
coming around funding, scholarships, visas. Just typically, if we can just round up very quickly from an admissions point of view, what a student needs to do to apply, what English language requirement they need, even though it seems like it's more hands-on than just classroom based.
Of course, yes. No, thank you so much. My name's Fraser and I'm postgraduate admissions lead here at Heriot-Watt University. Delighted to have. so many people on the call today. From a visa perspective, first of all, the visa process I'd like to say in many cases quite simple. It's simple if you're prepared, organised, and always encourage people to reach out if they do have any questions. I would say that the process itself, we do have a CAS request form that will be submitted, and that would be something that we would then distribute at the point that you go unconditional firm. And I'll keep English language super short and sweet. We do encourage you to check out our website. We have a dedicated English language page. If you would like to find out more about that, then drop us a quick email. Hard to go into each individual requirement for English language because there are so many different types that we can accept. But I'd say in a nutshell, check out the website, see what applies to you, and any questions, just give us a quick buzz or a little email. Happy to help.
And Fraser, do you work with third-party scholarship providers such as, let's say, Chevening, Commonwealth, to name a couple, and can they go through them to apply for this, or really are the in-house scholarship and funding offers the best opportunities?
Yeah, so the best opportunities, I'd say, in many cases, are directly through Heriot-Watt University. We do offer, posted the link to the website there, and there are a number of different opportunities that we have available through our website. That might be merit scholarships, bespoke scholarships, it might be specific funding opportunities available for specific programs. But in addition to that, we do work with the Achieving Scholarships. We do have a number of different applicants that come through that route. So again, we can review your offer, looking at the scholarship opportunities there, but also in comparison to some of the different ones, it might well be that you want to reach out for advice. And we do have a dedicated scholarships at hw.ac.uk email address as well that you can reach out to us through. We've got Donovan in the scholarships team. He is an absolute star. He is fantastic at what he does and can give some really wonderful advice.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on so ad hoc there. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
So,
Nathan, just to wrap things up, if that's okay, if we can just talk about what students can expect from the program as a whole. You know, there's certain programs and courses that always seem a bit mundane, let's say, and you know, you get what you can, you know, you whatever you put in, you get out and all that. But this seems a little bit different and seems a little bit more fun and a bit more opportunistic, which is great. What would you advise to students that are joining? What can they do before they start in September that will really help them on the program?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I think just try and do some background reading or sort of contextualize things for themselves. They'll have with courses like this, people are going to be drawn to it for a reason. Either they're interested in it or they're looking at a future opportunity as well. And if that's the case, I think just try and gain a bit of context to that situation. And I'd never tell anyone that they have to read a certain textbook to join this course or things like that. And I think as much as possible, have an open mind coming into it. I'll be honest that when I've done courses or my previous courses anyway, that I'm always very realistic about things like this. I try and make sure that I don't have rose-tinted glasses on as much as possible because it's very dangerous to do that. So I'll always address what I feel are the challenges, and I'll always be honest and critical of things like that. And but at the same time, we balance that. We try and look at, well, where are these challenges going to come? I don't want students to come off this course and be depressed and think there's absolutely no hope for the sector, because the reality of the situation there is a colossal opportunity there. And time again, these opportunities are underpinned by having the right people with the right skill set to deliver them. And it's all the courses I've done in the past, the engagement with the students has just been phenomenal, and it's fantastic to then see what they go on and do with those courses. And I will never ever get bored of that fact, and it will be the same here as well. It is very tailored, it is very niche as well, and I understand that, but it's very similar to what I've done before in this space. So I think an open mind and a good sense of humor to put up with me is always quite is advisable. I would say as well though that if anyone does want to to hear a bit more about the student experiences. We obviously have a cohort of students doing the masters at the moment. I have a handful of students that have been working with me that are more interested in the sustainability perspective, so they can certainly give you an insight into what it's like to be at Heriot-Watt, what it's like to be working with the ICBD team as well. Especially, we have a fantastic cohort of international students because, I don't overlook the fact if people are coming to Edinburgh for the first time, that could be a big change, and not just in terms of the weather. So there's lots of people that we can speak to, and there's lots of my former graduates from my other courses that I still speak to as well, and they'd be happy to give an honest review of what it's like to do one of my courses, and also I'm sure they'd be happy to showcase what their own career development has been like in the sustainability space across different sectors. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, the one and only time we'll mention the Edinburgh weather. Thank you.
I'm seeing grey skies as I look out of the window at the moment, which is not a great
For
advert.
yeah, and for all of you watching, this week we're in May, 22nd of May. We are expecting a heat wave in the UK over the next week. So it might not be pretty to Scotland for the whole 7 days, but yeah, keep your eyes out. You do get at least 1 week of nice hot sunshine while you're
Yeah.
up in Edinburgh. Nathan, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. It's always tough doing it on your own, but actually, you got the message over really well, and I think that actually it's one thing that's come across well is actually how open and approachable you are as an academic. So that's great. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to Nathan. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer them. And to Fraser as well from an admissions perspective. So thank you for your time, Fraser. Nathan, take care. All the best. And we'll see you later on in the year. Take care. Bye bye.